Hello, I'm Cosmic and welcome to Windforge, a side-scrolling block building game developed by Snowed-In Studios. Windforge is set in a steampunk universe, whereby on the world of Cordius, a world of floating islands, the world's main power source is dwindling. That main power source is whale oil. Not whales from the sea, mind you, nope, these are giant sky-flying whales that pack a hell of a punch. Rumours abound that an extinct race known as the Etherkin had a strange exotic power source. While research on the Etherkin is outlawed, you have been secretly hired to find out the truth. Windforge is similar in design to games such as Terraria and Starbound. Before you enter the world, you must first create your character. Character creation is limited but does offer the ability to choose your hometown, which then affects your character's starting stats and gear. This is not a permanent choice, as you'll be able to customise your character throughout the game, but it will affect you more prominently at the start. Windforge is set in the world of Cordius, which is a destructible procedural world with multiple environments. There are 3 layers of atmosphere around the core of the world. The closest layer to the core is the gas layer. It's filled with toxic gas and dangerous creatures, so you will have to have specialised equipment to survive. Next is the wild layer. This is where most of the world's life inhabits on its floating islands. The outer layer is a desolate cold temperate zone which is tough to survive in. Now while the game map is flat, if you travel to one edge of it, you'll actually appear on the other side. This is because the world is actually circular. The world's environments are varied and the creatures and enemies that you'll actually come into contact with come in all shapes and sizes. The world is completely destructible and it will change due to events such as battles. There are no unbreakable obstacles or objects in the game, so if you can't find an entrance to a temple, make one. The game's controls are a bit of a mixed bag. On one hand, the mouse allows full 360-degree aiming, which is good for both mining and combat. That being said, bullets often randomly decide not to hit even though you aimed correctly. Some of the controls, however, are quite counterintuitive. Movement for the most part is fine, however opening things like your inventory and closing tabs is really awkward. The main issue with the controls themselves is that they are not the most precise in the entire game. The world design being a host of floating islands means that one mistake usually leads to a long, annoying fall with a very sudden stop. Personally, I've always found block building games such as Minecraft to be very chorish and boring. I don't like them that much because I'm personally one more for story, and luckily Windforge does have one, as well as a number of quests to do. It means that you're actually given purpose to go out and creating things and crafting, which is something that I do actually enjoy if I've got a purpose for doing it. Giving me a game and just saying there's no reason for you actually to build anything because there's no actual point is very boring to me. So Windforge is a nice breath of fresh air in that regard, and it means that I'm actually going out into the world to find resources, mining, etc, for an actual reason other than just because I can. There are both main quests and side quests in Windforge. The main quests will have you gallivanting off to mysterious temples to find the source of the Etherkin and their power source, and the side quests are more about constructing items, building rare things, and overall improving your gear and equipment. Talking of gear and equipment, there are a ton of things to craft in Windforge, and before you're able to actually craft something, you have to find its recipe. Now, searching bookshelves in towns and chests, etc, are all ways of finding recipes. Once you've found the recipes, you then have to go on to resource gathering. Now, resource gathering is kind of, again, it's a bit of a mixed bag. On one hand, for example, to mine you use the jackhammer, which is a great way of mining because it's actually really speedy. The problem lies in its actual block, but the actual block design of the game. So for example, the blocks are actually really small in Windforge, and because of the controls, it's actually ridiculously hard to focus on a single block. It makes it quite fiddly, and especially when it comes to the building portion, for example, if you're designing your first airship, it actually becomes really fiddly because it's it's so micro scale in terms of the size of the blocks that it's so easy to make a mistake that it becomes quite frustrating. On the plus side, mining is very speedy, which is something I like. I hate long drawn out resource gathering, and luckily Windforge puts you right into the action more than just spending time and endless amounts of time just gathering resources. Luckily it's more about the action and the actual crafting rather than the resource gathering. Speaking of crafting, crafting is done like in any other game. It's very simple. You build a crafting station or you build a smelter and you just crack on with the resources and the recipes that you've got. Ultimately, Windforge's biggest draw is in its world design and its airships. It is really fun grappling around, although it can be a little bit frustrating because, as I've said, if you do miss your grapple hook, and you will just end up dying, and it becomes quite annoying, especially if you're quite far away from a town and then you have to respawn at a town, and it means a lot of travel time again. However, its biggest fun factor for me was airship battling. There's a lot of enemy airships and you get to fight a lot of different kinds of enemies, from big giant whales to, as I said, enemy airships, and it's really fun, and it's the biggest draw to the game from games like Terraria. I'm not a huge fan of the game's graphical design. I don't like some of the textures that they used and some of the colour schemes. I think everything looks a bit too bland and a bit too brown and grey. And I think it can look a bit boring, and I think that what they should have actually done is put a bit more colour, a bit more vibrancy into the game to make it feel a little bit more different. But that being said, overall it's actually a pretty solid indie title, and if you're a fan of the genre and you're a fan of games like Terraria, then there's plenty of content here to get your money's worth. If you're not a fan of the genre, it's not that much different from other games in the genre, so I would definitely, if you're not a fan, you're not going to find anything different here. But overall, a solid indie title that definitely, for those people who enjoy the type of game that it is, you will find your money's worth, and there is hours and hours to put into here, and it's really fun flying airships and fighting and jumping around. That being said, the game does have frustrations, and those frustrations are very clear in its game design. But that's Windforge. Thank you very much for watching. Do like, subscribe and leave a comment, and I will see you next time.